So when planning your allotment, the first thing you probably want to do is figure out what you want to grow. And there's a range of ways to do this. The most simple one is to walk into your kitchen or wherever you store your food and just see what vegetables you have the most of, what you use the most, what you like the most. Now it is worth considering that some things are easier to grow than others. Best example is I find it quite easy to grow things like lettuce, and I think most people would agree that it's one of the easiest crops to grow. However, if you were to move on to something that's a bit more finicky, like cauliflower, getting the heads to form properly can be quite a task. In fact, I've never managed to get a cauliflower's head to form properly. So considering what you think you will and won't be able to grow will be an important part of actually achieving success with this. So in our particular case we had butternut squash, potatoes, we also had carrots, peas, sweet corn, general stuff that we eat all the time, and this is what our plot's going to be based around because it's what we eat the most of. There's no point in growing something that you're not going to eat unless it's more of a curiosity. A good example would be that this year I'm planning on growing achochas, which we don't really eat them. I mean, they can go in salads just fine, or they can be pickled, and don't get me wrong, they're like a mix between a cucumber and a pea, the way that they taste. But we're more growing them simply because last year I had an abundance of seeds that came from them, and it feels like a bit of a waste not to grow them. So this year I'm going to harvest them a bit earlier so I don't get as many seeds. And once you've decided what you want to grow, you then have to decide where you're going to grow it. And it depends really on how much space you have available. The plot that I have is 60 foot by 26 foot, but I say I'll leave a foot on each side because the grass kind of grows in. So I have a 60 by 24 foot space to grow in. And I also have the back garden to grow in, which has 18 to 20 pots of varying size. Most of them will be fine for growing vegetables in. I find it easier to grow tomatoes, peppers and aubergines in pots simply because the biggest challenge you will have with them is both getting them to have enough nitrogen so that they grow properly, and also pests such as slugs and snails, because they will eat at those plants a lot. And there are various ways that you can create a plan for how you want to set out your allotment and garden. Personally, I used to use pen and paper, which is a very good way of doing it. The only problem is, if you change your mind, you then have to go and redraw the entire diagram, whereas if you use something like Microsoft Paint or Photoshop, anything like that, a drawing program, you can then just go in and change it, and you can actually save previous versions, so you can look how it changed and progressed from your first plan to your final plan. Once you've finalised your plan, you'll then have to go and buy your seeds. There's quite a few places you can get them from. Most websites will sell them. Well, I say most websites, I mean like eBay, Amazon, Wish, AliExpress, wherever. You know, there are so many websites that actually sell them now. There are even specific websites that sell seeds. Usually I'll get things from either Thompson & Morgan or Mr. Fothergill's. I have had things from Johnson's and Irwin Seeds. I also feel that Tradewind Seeds is a worthy shout out, along with Premier Seeds Direct and Happy Green Shop. Those last two are on eBay, by the way, and I've ordered from them multiple times, and they seem to have a very good variety of different seeds. When to start your seeds is almost as important as where to start them. So you can start seeds indoors or outdoors, or you can have a greenhouse, which is sort of in between the two. At this time of year, it's currently the 15th of February 2020. I've started onion seeds, pepper seeds and aubergine seeds inside, and I'm planning next month to start some more seeds outside in the greenhouse. So for example, snapdragons and didiscus, more sorts of flowers. I'll also be moving the onions from inside to the greenhouse, simply because I want to create more space in the windowsill for more delicate crops that I don't want to put outside in March, such as tomatoes. So it's also a good idea to write down on your plan when you want to start these different plants. So another choice is whether you're getting them as readily started plants or as a packet of seeds. I'd recommend most of the time just to get a packet of seeds. However, if you want to grow anything out of the brassica family, in my experience you're best off to get them from starts, simply because of the fact that I usually plant them in September. It's not something I do all year round, it's more the fact that they're winter hardy, so I grow them in the winter. And around that sort of a time, we have something called the cabbage white butterfly, which usually lays its like little orange eggs on the cabbages and brassicas, and the caterpillars will absolutely decimate your plants. And this is what happened to me last year, was why I chose not to really bother with cabbages from here on. And when I do bother with them, I'm just going to get starts. It's completely up to you. I have done them completely successfully from seed before. It's just a matter of how much time and effort you want to put into them. And for us, we don't eat cabbage that much, nor anything from the brassica family in general. So to us, it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, if we can get a cabbage to grow, that's fine, we'll have it, but it's not really the number one priority like, say, peppers or courgettes or aubergines are. The order in which you place your plants is also somewhat important, not because of the plants themselves, but more because of something called NPK ratio. So that's nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus, which is the nutrients in the soil. Some vegetables take up more nutrients of one sort than others would. So brassicas generally are heavy on nitrogen, whereas something like parsnips are not heavy on nitrogen. And planting something like parsnips in an area with heavy amount of nitrogen won't do them that much good. In fact, you'd end up with short, stubby roots and massive top growth. As a rule of thumb, nitrogen encourages leaf and stem growth, potassium encourages fruit growth, so tomatoes, peppers, the actual flowering fruit of the plants, and phosphorus encourages root growth, which is good for carrots and parsnips and other such root vegetables. So as you can see, if we flip through the different plans that I've made, at the beginning it's quite here and there, whereas we get through to the end, the changes are more slight. So at the end here, all I've done is switched around the onions and the beans. That's because at the end of this year I'm planning on having a load of manure, and they will just dump it at the end of your allotment plot. And last year I had a load, and they dumped it right on my cabbages. So out of experience, I'd say right at the front, wherever it's likely that you're going to have something put on there, you know, soil amendments, don't put anything that's really going to be standing through the winter. But that's just me personally. I don't know how it is. I've only ever been on one allotment plot, so I can't say what it's like for others. We've already talked about pests. Disease of plants, although it isn't something you may think about too much, is something that's very considerably a problem, especially later on in the year. The most notable of which is called blight. There's two types of blight, early blight and late blight. They both affect tomatoes and potatoes quite badly, but they also affect aubergines and peppers in a limited capacity. Early blight is very slow acting, whereas late blight, within the space of about 4 or 5 days, will completely decimate an entire tomato plant. There isn't any way of curing it. You can kind of control it through pruning, early blight at least, but once you have late blight, there's no going back. You might as well just rip up the plants and burn them. Mosaic virus is also another considerable thing, especially with tomatoes, peppers and aubergines. And this is where the plant's leaves become very mottled, they switch between yellow and green, and the fruits even become distorted. There's nothing actually wrong with the fruits themselves, they are edible, although the disease may change the way it tastes. And to be quite honest, once again the same as with blight, you might as well just rip it up and throw it away. Topics you do have to consider when it comes down to planning. However, the way you plan things on paper and the way that things usually turn out can be two very different things. Nothing's set in stone, not really. So that is just something to keep in mind. Nothing's perfect, it doesn't have to be perfect at all. The only two questions are, is the garden being productive and are you enjoying it? And hopefully the answer to both these things will be yes. You also have to think about weather as well. How cold is it outside at what time of year? Exactly when you want to start different vegetables and that. I'm in the UK at the minute, England, so February, early March is the sort of time when you'd want to start most things. A little later on in April for say sweet corn, but generalisation about March is the time that I would want to start. So really this is only a little taste of the topic. There's quite a few things to cover, and really you kind of have to learn as you're going along with it. I mean, I never thought the weather would be a problem, yet my Jerusalem artichokes last year were blown down by the wind because we have quite bad wind in this area. And it's just something I'd never thought about. But lo and behold, last year, what I did is I stuck some sticks around it, got some string, wrapped it all up so it'd stay up together, and they've stayed up. So problem solving really is important here as well. So I wish everyone the best of luck this year with starting your vegetables, your allotment, your garden, wherever, whatever you're growing. Good luck with it. Thanks for watching this video and I hope you found it helpful. If you'd like to see more, there's loads if you click on the link in the description and visit the Awesome Allotment YouTube channel. We also have a Facebook page, by the way.